back with another episode of Pottawattamie County Roots. Hi, I'm Todd Studer. Coming up today, we're going to learn a little bit more about some of your opportunities with Pottawattamie Conservation to learn about nature, to learn about how to build a fire, to learn about jewelry making. Dustin Clayton is a conservation naturalist with Pottawattamie County, and he's going to be our guest today on Pottawattamie County Roots. You know, the Jenny Edmondson Foundation believes healthcare goes beyond hospital walls, and through its Caring for Our Communities initiative, the foundation helps high-risk, low-income, and underserved individuals access resources that remove barriers to better health and long-term well-being. Each year, the foundation also brings the community together through Dance for the Beat, a signature event that raises critical funds for uninsured and underinsured heart patients. Those funds help provide treatment, medication, and rehabilitation, and life-saving support. Learn more, get involved, or support the mission at jehfoundation.org. For a salon that feels like home, come to Heather's Hair Hut in Underwood, Iowa. With over 30 years of experience, Heather delivers expert haircuts for men, women, and children, as well as coloring services, styling, and waxing services. This family-friendly salon opens 6 days a week with convenient evening hours, all in town with a beautiful country view. Whether you need a quick trim or a fresh new look, Heather's Hair Hut is the place to be. Heather's Hair Hut in Underwood, where experience meets comfort. And Pottawattamie County Roots brought to you by Dave Lawrence, your Edward Jones financial advisor. Learn how he can help you reach your financial goals. Visit edwardjones.com for more. Edward Jones, member SIPC. We welcome Dustin Clayton into the studios on Willow, and Dustin is a conservation naturalist.
That's
with
correct.
Pottawattamie County Park System. And you are based out of Hitchcock, right?
That is 100% correct, Todd.
So every day, oh man, now I'm rethinking my career choices. Every day you get to go to Hitchcock Nature Center, and that's how you get to spend.
I have the best commute probably in the Omaha metro area. I live in North Omaha, so I'm right across the Mormon Bridge. Mm-hmm. So my commute every day is about 15 minutes drive through the Missouri River Valley and up the Loess Hills. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, you're not fighting Omaha traffic, and the end result, you're at Hitchcock and you get to spend your day out there. What does a conservation naturalist do? What does that title mean?
So a naturalist in the Iowa County Conservation System is an environmental educator. What we do is environmental education, and that can take there can be a broad array of mm-hmm. things that fall under that heading. Generally, it's a lot of work with young people, students. In the spring and in the autumn, we do a lot of field trips out at the park, mostly out at Hitchcock Nature Center, but also a few at Arrowhead Park and some at Botna Bend as well. In the wintertime, we do in-school visits. So we'll go into the school, teach kids about nature, about different sort of conservation topics, those sorts of things. In the summertime, it's really, really heavy into summer camps. That's our big thing that we do in the summertime. So we run a series of camps that are very, very popular for kids from sort of pre-K all the way up to high school this year. We have a high school sort of outdoor adventure overnight backpacking trip that we're going to be doing this year, which is going to be a lot of fun. So that's our work that we do with young people. In addition to that, we also do some programming for adults and older learners as well. We have a series that we do with a naturalist named Ron Caesar, who is a retired teacher.
Yep, I see his name all the time on the emails I get.
Ron's great. Yeah. He's really good, and he runs a land ethic workshop, which is based on the work of Aldo Leopold. And seasonally and throughout the spring, summer, and a little bit into the autumn, he'll take people out on the land at Hitchcock Nature Center and introduce them to different natural topics. I lead a series of programs on wild edible and medicinal plants both for adults and for young people. I lead a series on storytelling in the oral tradition that we do at Hitchcock Nature Center every now and then. And this year I am starting something called the Hitchcock Folk School. That's something I'm really, really excited about. Mm-hmm. And it is a program focused on building relationship with the natural world through the practice of traditional craft.
Is this geared then toward the natural world in our area, meaning that it has a focus on, say, what makes the Loess Hills unique and that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Most of in fact, the overwhelming majority of our educational programs that we offer are focused on super local to this area, right? So on the Loess Hills, on the river systems, on the watersheds that are right here in Pottawattamie County. That is definitely our focus.
We talk a lot, either on the show or out in public too, about the uniqueness of the Loess Hills. But I don't know that we really fully grasp just how special this area is.
Yeah, so the loess is a really common soil the world over. So it's a glacially deposited soil. So when the glaciers came down here and receded, finishing up about 13,000 years ago, they left massive, massive amounts of loess. And you can find that loess in Nebraska, you can find it in Iowa, you can find it all over the Midwest. Additionally, you can find loads and loads of loess in Europe, in Asia, and all those sorts of places. However, only here on the eastern side of the Missouri River in Iowa, as well as in China. China has Loess Hills as well. Does that loess pile up to depths of greater than 60 feet? That's what makes the unique landform that's called the Loess Hills, right? Or the geologically significant. That's how we talk about it. When you look over on the Nebraska side, you're going to see hills over there too, right? Now, people always ask me, they say, Dustin, what's the difference between the Loess Hills here and the Loess Hills in Nebraska? Well, the primary difference is that on the Nebraska side, that loess is not piled up to that appropriate depth that allows them to create the unique geological landform that is the Loess Hills. And what I mean by that is here, our Loess Hills defy that underlying topography, right? So if you were to take the loess off of the underlying bedrock and soils down there, the topography would look completely different than what these hills look like. On the Nebraska side, generally, it conforms to that underlying topography.
That's interesting. It's not anything that I'd heard before, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, kind of just a thing, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I'd heard that while we do a pretty good job of conservation with the Loess Hills here, China hasn't really done that. And so that makes, it is in both locations, but ours is probably a little more intact.
So yeah, that's probably correct. I will say that China's are significantly more extensive than ours. It's a bigger area that's covered by the Loess Hills, and I believe that theirs are a little bit taller than ours are as well. However, they've been pretty intensively managed for 1,000. And of course, China is an incredibly ancient culture. So there have been people living there, farming there, running animals on those hills for many, many years, for thousands of years at this point, in a way that we haven't as intensively managed ours here, which is great for us from a conservation standpoint because it gives us access to some of the best remnant prairies that we have in Iowa. So Iowa was once over 80% prairie, 80% grassland, right? When you look out at all the corn and soybeans that we see today, historically, that would have been prairie grass, mixed grass prairie, throughout most of Iowa in the east, a lot of tall grass prairie. And here in the Loess Hills, one of the great things about the Loess Hills that is really interesting is it mimics sort of further western environments. So you get some prairie species in the Loess Hills that aren't common throughout the rest of Iowa. In fact, they're more common further west, western Nebraska, South Dakota, places like that. But they survive here in the Loess Hills because of our generally more arid climate in the hills themselves.
Well, I know we're going to get to some of those classes, but you brought it up. It just made me think about it.
Yeah.
The prairie aspect of it, one of my favorite things about Pottawattamie Bend is that there's a lot of restoration that happened over there, and there's walking paths, good wide walking paths, so you're not crowded, and you can just kind of stroll through all of that. And it was kind of a powerful experience for me over there at Pottawattamie Bend the first time I did it.
Yeah, I think people tend to think of prairie as just grass, right? When we picture that in our mind, maybe you get the image from like Dances with Wolves or something like that, right? This big endless sea of grass.
It looks like a bunch of wheat.
Forever. Sure, yeah. But if you take a little bit closer of a look at a prairie, you're going to see a really diverse array of plants and animals that are sort of thriving and interacting in that habitat, in that environment. Prairie is really, really special. It's one of our more endangered types of habitats that we have here in the United States, particularly mixed grass and tall grass prairie. There's just not a lot of it left. Here in Iowa, we have less than 1% of the prairie that we would have had historically, and a large percentage of that is preserved in the Loess Hills.
Yeah, and I know there's that small little park that if you're headed south on 35 north of Des Moines, you can pull into and just kind of drive through it. no real place to do anything. It just looks like it's just a drive-through, and then you're back on your trip again.
Sure.
But you're right. There's just not many places left that, and it all used to be that. So
well, and Todd, one of the great things about Hitchcock is that we have these great prairie preserves out there, and our natural areas management crew has worked really, really hard at doing restoration there in that park. So we have an opportunity to see a little bit of what the Loess Hills might have historically looked like, right? We're using our best judgment when it comes to doing this restoration work. We're using historical records. We're also using sort of indigenous records, those sorts of things to understand what the prairie might have been like historically. You know, a big part of that would have been animals. That's a part that's absent from a lot of prairie restoration today. Large grazing animals, things like bison, elk, those sorts of animals. And we've been trying to run cattle and goats on there intermittently to mimic the effect that those historical animals, native animals, would have had. And that's something that people like seeing out there too, I guess.
Oh yeah, they were out there last year. I remember seeing.
Yeah, the Highland cows.
Yeah,
people
yeah,
like the Highland
just
cows.
so cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you probably can't see it, but I have a picture that somebody took
Okay.
of those.
Oh, really?
Hanging up over here on my shelves. Yeah. But let's talk a bit about these folks classes that you have coming up, and it's going to be out at Hitchcock. So. Go into depth a little bit more about what they're going to be and how people can get involved.
Yeah, so the folk school is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. My first career was actually not in conservation. I was a jeweler for a long time.
Oh, I can see that transfer then.
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense up front. Right. But, I worked with my hands for a large part of my life, making things, building things, that sort of thing. And since I was a young kid, I've been really interested in primitive skills. That word, let me sort of... A lot of people's hair raises on the back of their neck at that word primitive. I want to say that when I say the word primitive skills, I mean sort of original, right? Like primary. That's what I mean when I say primitive. So these are things like flint knapping, bow and arrow making, otlot making, those sorts of things, right? Traditional woodworking, these really sort of ancient skills that people have had and used for thousands and thousands of years, that all of our ancestors really practiced at some point. And so one of the things I like introducing people to, both young people and adults, is this idea of engaging with the natural world through that practice of traditional craft, through really getting your hands into materials that our ancestors might have interacted with on a regular basis and seeing what you can create. So with that in mind, I've always liked the model of the folk school. This is an idea that comes to us from Scandinavia, Denmark in particular. It's an 18th century or 19th century rather idea of this idea of reconnecting people with sort of the traditions that their ancestors might have practiced, right? The guy that invented it, I'm trying to remember his name, I wrote it down. Nikolai Grundtvig. He was a theologian, he was a poet, he was an educator, and he thought that the purpose of education wasn't necessarily just to gain knowledge, but it was life's awakening. That's sort of his quote, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. I like that as an idea behind education. And he really believed in that a fully rounded education involved the head, the heart, and the hands, right? So you have to have all of those things involved to really learn something. And I like that idea as well, right? That really speaks to me. And so folk schools in Scandinavia, Denmark, later Sweden, Norway, and even Finland developed based on those ideas, on his principles, right? Now, when that idea came to the United States, the idea of the folk school really took off as a craft school. That was the primary thing that they were interested in, right? Was doing crafts. So this, again, is woodworking, it's pottery, it's weaving, textile making, those sorts of things, all these traditional old ways of doing things. And that's sort of the model that I'm approaching the Hitchcock Folk School from. So it's starting off very small. We have 3 classes coming up, or rather 3 programs coming up this winter and this into the spring. The first one is going to be a 3-part class. This is a woodworking or a wood carving class that we're going to be doing at Hitchcock Nature Center. The dates for that one, let me see if I can find it. I've got it right here. So it will be Wednesday, February 4th, Wednesday, February 11th, and Wednesday, February 18th from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock. We're going to learn all about knife safety. We're going to learn all about responsible harvest of wood from our woodlands. We're going to learn some different carving techniques. What I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest some willow from Hitchcock Nature Center. So I'm harvesting this from a place that Natural Areas Management is already planning on thinning trees, right? So this is not deforesting anything the way that I'm accessing this wood. And we're gonna carve walking sticks from wood that comes from Hitchcock, which I think is kind of a fun idea, right? You can walk around Hitchcock with a walking stick that you've created from the forest there.
It's just going to add to the experience.
Yeah.
It really will. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about we as a human species were not designed to be looking down at a phone like this all the time.
Yes, sir.
And that electronic connection and that artificial light and the artificial stimulus that's constantly coming from all of that, it's not how we're wired. And it's, I believe, and I'm not a doctor, but I believe that it's the source of a lot of issues that we have going on. However, we were wired to work with our hands, to actually spend our day physically productive, because if we didn't, there's no telling we make it to the next day.
Yeah.
That's how survival, that's how we're put together. So what you're talking about, man, I'm thinking of the level of just passive therapy that you're going to get by sitting down and doing something like this.
And I also think, and I really, really believe this, that we do a lot of programs that are really focused on science, right? This is a lot of what we do, and that's great. That's perfect. But that's not everybody's entry point for relationship with nature, right? Some people's entry point is art. That was certainly, when I was a young person, that was my entry point for caring about the natural world, for understanding what was going on around me in nature, for how to process the experiences that I would have in the forest, on hikes, or in parks with friends when I was a young person, was doing artwork, right? And learning some of these traditional skills that people have used with their hands. I think that can give us a connection, not just with the materials, right? With where those materials are coming from, how our ancestors and the people that were ancestral to this land would have depended on those things. But it can also be sort of an entry point to deeper relationship with the land itself. So I know that sounds a little hippy-dippy, up in the air.
Not even close. I think I'm right in there with you.
Okay.
And it's not... Look, I think that somewhere along the line we got off on the wrong track mentally about what some of this stuff means.
Yes.
And you start thinking that conservation is it's just this extreme left wing kind of thing, and it's it's not. You're just against business. You're against that. No. There's so much more going on with it that helps us as we're doing it.
Yeah. And I think that a healthy landscape, a healthy habitat, a healthy ecosystem, that equals healthy people, right? And young people in Iowa and all around the country, really, I mean, they want to have access to these natural places, right? And people of all ages really do. It's important for us to have access to these natural places and to be in a sort of right relationship, right? To borrow like a Buddhist terminology with the landscape itself. I think that's incredibly important, and I think that it's eye-opening for a lot of people once they get out onto the land and start having these experiences. As you say, get away from their phones, right? Get away from their screens. We're such a screen-driven society and culture right now.
And I get the irony of where you're seeing this. I get it, okay? I understand, but I think that there's a responsible way of using it. And it's a great tool. I'm not saying we should just return to the pre-electricity days.
Obviously
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But
Todd, I like it when you flick the switch and the lights come on.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So that is the wood carving class.
Yes.
And then after that, you have something that's actually going to be outside.
Yes. In March, I believe it's March. Oh, I wrote this down too. I wrote all this stuff down.
Yeah,
so on March 21st, 10 o'clock to noon, we're going to be doing sort of a fire making for beginners type of class. This is a one-time class, and it's for if you've ever been on a camping trip and you've thought, man, I wish I could build a campfire without pouring a bunch of lighter fluid on it and lighten it. Or if you've ever wondered how to make survival fire, if you're in the wilderness, those sorts of things. If you've wondered about what role fire played on the landscape historically, because fire was a very important part of how prairies form. This is a great opportunity for you to learn about all of those things. So this is for young people and adults, again, who sort of are brand new to the idea maybe of doing outdoor stuff or of camping, and they feel maybe a little intimidated by it, this will be a great opportunity for you to leave with a skill that you can feel a little bit more confident about your fire building skills.
There's something that is, I'm going to call it primal, that when you build a fire and you're doing it without a propane torch, and suddenly everything that you've done, and it's a process. You got a lot of different things that you have to do. And then when that fire is created, and I can feel it. I mean, it's like, here's a sense of accomplishment. I've just done something.
So years ago, a good friend of mine taught me how to do friction fire with a bow drill, right? So just the bow drill, we went out there with my pocket knife and my shoelaces, and we harvested everything from the forest to make this friction fire, right? And it was literally like magic. Once I actually got the fire lit using that technique. It felt exactly like magic. And that's kind of what I want to help people to experience. So we're going to do fire making with a number of different tools. We're going to use relatively modern things, matches, obviously. But we're also going to use flint and steel. We're going to use ferrous rods for striking fire. We're going to do friction fire. I can't promise that everybody will get a friction fire, but we're gonna make the attempt at it. Everybody's going to have the opportunity to understand the process, what the materials are. Safety, this is a big one, right? Anytime we're talking about fire, safety should be one of our number one concerns. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about fire safety, how to extinguish a fire, how to leave a fire if you have to leave an area, all these sorts of things. And again, the role that fire plays in our ecosystem, because it's an important component of how the land is managed at Hitchcock Nature Center and all of our conservation areas.
That fire class coming up in March, and then you have another class that is going to help folks maybe figure how to be a little more connected to the people that came before us.
Yeah, so this one's a little more out there, but it is the one that I'm most looking forward to. So like I told you, I was a jeweler for 25 years. I was a jeweler. That was my first career. And I've always really, really liked sort of ancient jewelry, ancient ornamentation, right? I'm wearing a bead on my neck right now. This is a little piece of jade right here that I found on a beach in California.
Okay.
And I drilled that with all Stone Age tools, right, over this Christmas.
Right.
It took 13 hours to drill a hole in that piece of
That
jade.
little...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So here's the thing about that. What's always fascinated me about this is our ancestors were definitely making this kind of stuff, right? They were making beads out of shells and stones and antler and horn. They were making bracelets and necklaces, earrings, all types of personal adornment. But if we want those things today, all we have to do is go onto Amazon or go into a store or go onto eBay and order it. And the next day we have it and we can wear it and look cool. But 2,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 70,000 years ago, whenever, if somebody wanted something like that, if somebody wanted a string of shell beads, they had to spend a significant amount of time that could be spent gathering food, making shelter, building fire, preparing food, taking care of children, whatever it is that people might have done, right? So there's something to this personal adornment, right? This idea of beauty, wearable beauty, and objects that people find aesthetically pleasing. People had to really, really want that long ago, right? This was incredibly important to them to devote that kind of time and energy to creating these things. So I have worked very hard over the last 20 years learning some of these techniques, trying to figure out how people historically have created these items. And some of this stuff dates back well into the Paleolithic. You know, if you look at ancient Europe, some of the mammoth ivory carvings and bone carvings that they find back then, all done with flint and stone tools. I've always just been fascinated by that. So over these last 20 or so years, I've kind of figured out some of the techniques that people use to create these things. And I'm pretty excited to share it with people that might be interested. So this is great for history buffs. It's great for people that are just interested in jewelry or crafting. Yeah. It's good for for archaeology students. So maybe students at university or colleges in the area that are taking archaeology or history classes. Or just people that want to connect with something that their ancestors were doing using local materials. So in this class, we're gonna cover the techniques, the tools that people would have used to create those things. We're also going to talk about where to source some of those materials
I was wondering about that,
and
yeah.
how to responsibly do that, right? Because we don't want to go into wild native areas and sort of decimate area. That's not being in right relationship with nature, right? So a big part of this is how do we ethically source these materials, and then how do we transform them into things that we might actually want to wear or give to loved ones, those kinds of things. So that one is taking place in April. That's the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd.
It's going to be a 3-week class again.
It's a 3-week class again, and that is from 6 till 8 o'clock in the evening on that one as well. So we're going to talk about making the tools to make these things as well as making the items. I'm really excited about that one. That's maybe the biggest jump for people to get to, I think, out of the three of them. But for me, it's the one I'm most excited about doing.
What's the process to get signed up for the classes?
So for all of our environmental education programs, for anything that we do or offer, if you go to potconservation.com, P-O-T-T conservation.com, go to our environmental education tab, and there will be an opportunity to sign up for our programs. You can also look on our calendar on that website is probably the easier way to find the individual programs.
Is this, I'm assuming, limited space?
Yeah, so the wood carving one, we're limiting it to 10 people.
Okay.
The fire starting class, I believe it's limited to 15. And then again, the ancient jewelry class, we're limiting that to 10 people as well. I really want to be able to give people the sort of individual attention for these things. A lot of these skills, if you're brand new to them, they can be very difficult and a little frustrating. I have a lot of experience with all three of these things, so I want to be on hand to give everybody all of the guidance that they might need to be successful and to have success with this process.
Well, this is it's great that you're doing these things.
Thank
I know you put a lot of work into,
Yeah.
I'm sure, just getting it together to be able to have them. And all of these will take place at Hitchcock Nature Center.
Yes, every one of these is at Hitchcock Nature Center. And ideally, if these are well received, I'd love to expand the offerings of the Hitchcock Folk School, branch out into different areas, maybe eventually have guest teachers come and teach classes on crafts that they're well versed in. That's the goal. These are my long-term sort of goals for this program. Because like I said, I really believe that interacting with these natural materials with your hands is a great way to get into the natural world and really, really open yourself up to those experiences.
For me, when I'm out there, I feel better.
Good.
I from physically to mentally to spiritually, the whole thing.
Yeah.
When I'm out in nature, and we have such great county parks, whether it be at Hitchcock, whether it be at Pottawattamie Bend or Arrowhead or Narrows, I don't really get a whole lot out of. It's just next to a river.
Yeah. Well, I like Narrows already.
Yeah, but
it's a good little
it's a little bit of a it's kind of like a day trip. Go have a picnic.
Sure. Yes.
And I know they've got the archery thing. out
Yep,
there
we've
now.
got a good archery range.
Yeah, and that was, I could see, had gotten a lot of use.
Yes, it definitely gets some use for sure.
But these options are in a lot of the different parks too. That people are have the ability to really connect with nature when you get out into the park system.
Yeah, we work very hard at making conservation a big part of our county parks. So there are natural areas throughout our county parks, and we work very hard at doing restoration work. One of the primary things that we want to do is provide habitat for our native wildlife and also our migratory wildlife that rely on these natural areas for their entire livelihood, right? So while it's important to us to be able to get out to these places, to relax, to unwind from our lives, to connect with the natural world, it's imperative for our native wildlife to have access to these areas.
Well, and as an example of how I was kind of dissing on the technology end of it.
Yeah.
But here's how you can combine the two. I have that. I'm sure you're aware of it. That Cornell bird app.
Yes.
The bird identification.
Yep.
So I'm out at Hitchcock and I'm camping. And I'm just there by myself. And at about 6:30 that morning, the birds start up. So I pull it out and I hit the button, and I think like 14 or 15 different birds that it identified, and birds that I didn't even know were in the area.
Yeah.
And that is a way to combine the two things and really feel a connection to what it is that you're hearing.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool.
Well, with that in mind, Todd, one of the neat things that we have a modus station, and you're going to ask me what modus means, and I'm not going to be able to tell you because I didn't prepare for that. But one of our volunteers, Glenn Pollock, he set up this modus station where we track birds, migratory birds that come through the park. And these birds are tagged, and they sort of ping off of these modus towers that are in various areas across the country and the world, really. So we can track where some of the birds that have showed up in our park go and have come from, right? So we had one bird that flew, I think, all the way from Alaska all the way down to southern Mexico or something like that, and then back, right? So we get a lot of birds coming through there that really, like I said, really rely on these natural areas for habitat, for nesting, for food, and water. And of course, we do our migratory raptor counting every year at Hitchcock Nature Center as well, which we've been doing that for about 30 years now.
Yeah, my problem is I'm still OCD about it. So even going for a hike, I'll start hearing birds and I'm pulling my phone out to go see what it is.
Yeah.
That's taking it too far. I needed to still be able to disconnect from it.
Well, one thing that I tell people, and this is true whether it's plants that you're talking about, whether it's rocks, birds, whatever it is that you're trying to identify and learn more about, sort of pick 5 for the year, right?
Okay.
And learn them inside and out. Learn what they're doing in the wintertime. Learn what they're doing in the spring, in the summer, in the fall. Learn what their flowers look like if it's a flowering plant, what the fruit looks like, what the bird's feathers look like, all those sorts of aspects of those things. And then you'll know 5 natural things inside and out, right? You'll be able to point them out in the wintertime. One of the downsides, I guess, of our current relationship with nature, which there's a lot, but one of the downsides is when people go for a walk in the woods, they look at this wall of trees and this wall of vegetation and they see plant, right? Once you start to understand that, oh, there's a hackberry tree, right? And there's an oak tree. And down here I'm seeing, fringed puccoon, or I'm seeing columbine or something like that. Then you start to see what animals are relying on those plants, right? What are the squirrels doing? What are the different birds doing? What kinds of insects are pollinating these flowers? Who relies on those insects for food? Then you start to get the ecological view of the thing, right? The whole community that's going on there. Robin Wall Kimmerer, you've heard of her before?
Yes.
Yeah. So she has this whole idea about mutualism and flourishing, right? The way that there's this gift economy going on in nature, which is a beautiful way to look at it, right? Every idea we come up with about nature is, in a sense, a metaphor, right? Generally, we tend to think about nature as competitive, right? The survival of the fittest, law of the jungle sort of thing. Kimmerer's idea is this idea of gifting, right? And I think it's a beautiful idea. To me, it's a better metaphor for being in relationship with nature. When we look at, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm happy to,
but
please do.
When we look at something like a blackberry bush, right? And that blackberry bush puts out those big, beautiful blackberries every summer. Late in the summer, these big, luscious, juicy blackberries. Well, she wants those birds to come and get those blackberries, right? She's got the thorns on there so that hopefully the groundhog doesn't get in there and eat all the blackberries, right? She wants the birds to come down, land, and eat those blackberries. Well, of course, she's getting something out of that as well, right? That bird takes that and he flies over to the next valley and he poops all the seeds out, right, from those big, delicious blackberries. And then she gets to spread into that next valley, right? So that's a gift economy. That's mutualism happening there. Everybody's getting something out of that deal, right? The bird gets the food, the blackberry gets to spread her seeds around into new areas and expand. And once you start to know species that you're encountering in nature on an individual level, and even individual plants, you start to see those relationships a lot more clearly than you do when you just look at a big wall of vegetation and see plant.
This is fascinating stuff. And I know that when we started, I said, we'll go about 20 minutes. Seriously, I could just sit and talk to you here for the rest of the day.
Well, I appreciate that.
But so hopefully we can get you back
anytime,
and we can have some more conversations about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Whether it's at Hitchcock or at any of the park system. Dustin, thank you so much for your
Absolutely,
time.
Todd. Thanks for having me.
We'll get the information out there and get some folks signed up for your class. And I'm really interested in that fire.
All right.
The fire class.
You should sign up.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. All right. Appreciate you, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're looking for all natural health solutions in Southwest Iowa, you really need to visit Bambi's Green Acres Natural Market. She's located in Council Bluffs and serves our community since 1997. She has a wide selection of vitamins, supplements, essential oils, herbal remedies, even diet aids, and bulk foods sourced locally. Staffed with over 37 years of experience, Bambi's helps you reach your health goals. You can find her at 805 South Main Street in Council Bluffs. If you're looking to buy or sell your home, in the Southwest Iowa region, it is Blake Hunter, your trusted realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Blake knows the local market and is dedicated to helping you find the perfect place to call home. Are you a first-time buyer? Are you upgrading? Are you ready to sell? Blake Hunter is here to guide you every step of the way. Visit his website, blakehunter.homes. Start hunting for your dream home with confidence. And Castle & Associates of American Family Insurance is your local insurance provider for all of your home, auto, life, business, and farm insurance needs. 4 convenient locations. They are in Trainer, also in Council Bluffs, Bellevue, and Elkhorn, which means they're local and in your neighborhood, ready to help you navigate the complexities of insurance today. Travis and his team will educate, advise, and simplify insurance, all to protect those things you cherish most. Give them a call for your free quote. That wraps up today's show. Again, thank you very much to Dustin Clayton. He is a conservation naturalist with Pottawattamie County. Potconservation.com is the website to go to learn more about all of the classes that he was talking about. That's going to wrap up today's show. My name's Todd Studer. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.